All right, we are live. There we go. I was like, poof, we're here. Hello,
Yay!
everyone. My name is Addison, Addison Horner, author. I'm really excited to be here tonight with Emma Hill, E Hill author. Emma, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing so great. I am very excited to be here and celebrate your book release for book two.
Oh my gosh, man, what a journey. And now you're so for those who don't know Emma, first off, you don't know me. I don't know why you're here. But basically, I'm a YA fantasy author writing YA fantasy books. I just got these two bad boys with text in reverse here. You can see Marrow and Soul and Threads of Light. Threads of Light just came out today, and Emma has written a couple of contemporary romances with these magical, fun elements. And her YA contemporary fantasy is launching on Kickstarter tomorrow, all from Major Melody. Tell us about that. Tell us why we should love that.
I will give you like a 2 second update, and then I just realized I have a nightlight sticker on my water bottle, so I'll be showing that off.
Mm.
But yes, All for Major Melody is a young adult fantasy about theater kids who might be the chosen ones. And the reason
Mm.
why you can trust that it'll be good is that Addison was the editor. And so he tore it apart. And you know what? Since it's a day before launch, I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to have an impromptu cover reveal. And so if anybody's watching, then y'all can just see
Hey.
this is the cover
Oh
of Formation
my
Melody.
gosh.
I don't think you've seen this. Have you seen this?
No. No, I have not seen. This is absolute. Oh my gosh. I was a theater kid. And
Yes.
seeing this stage, the spotlight, the set, seeing all this stuff, oh my gosh, that is just like hits the spot. That's gonna go right to its ideal reader for sure.
Yes. Oh, I hope so. I hope so. Yes. So if that cover just made you excited, you should check it out.
Oh, made me
Um,
excited. I'm definitely gonna check out that Kickstarter.
yes. No, please do. I'm so excited. But we are here to talk about your books. And so to celebrate the occasion, I don't know if everybody can see, but I'm wearing my ghost earrings. So we're going to be talking a lot
Mm.
about ghosts today. And then I have my oops, I'm just gonna throw my phone on the floor. That's fine. And then I have my nightlight sticker.
Ah, yes.
So
I
we
love that
have
sticker so much.
all the hype for the Marrow and Soul, Threads of Light, Vitalian Chronicles situation.
Oh yes, I'm very
Yes,
ready.
that's what we're here to
So,
celebrate.
So basically, how we're going to do this for y'all who are watching, we've got a list of questions here we're going to go through. We're going to put them up on the screen. In the meantime, though, if you have questions, please drop them in like the YouTube comments below. Anything that you guys bring up here live will be our priority to answer. We're really excited to get into those. So, Emma, would you please read out this first question for us?
Yes. So after you finished Marrow and Soul, how did you decide where to take our dear little thief next?
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to avoid getting too spoilery for those who haven't read Marrow and Soul yet, those Kickstarter backers. I might reference some stuff, but I'll be very discreet about it. So Marrow and Soul, this book ends in the very last chapter. The main character has a dream about this character, this sister named Talia, but it's a sister that she's never heard of and doesn't think actually exists because her parents are dead. That's not really a spoiler. That's like in chapter one. But
It's
but I
okay.
wrote this when I was writing the end of this book, and I was like, this feels like this strange, mysterious thing after the events that happened in the climax. And like, I don't know how I'm going to follow this up, but I'm going to follow this up. And then I had to start writing Threads of Light, and I was like, oh, okay, it's time to follow this up. So I had some thoughts. I started planning this in January 2023, so a little over 2 years ago is when I started like this outline. And basically, the thought I had that was kind of the premise was every night, Saffron, the main character, dreams of a sister she never had, and I wanted those dreams and that those thoughts and that connection between those two characters, the one who exists and the one who maybe sort of exists, we don't know yet. I wanted that to be the center of the story. And besides that, all I knew was that as this book kind of focused on what's called the Ghost Tablet, that relic, this book would focus on the Light Tablet. That's all I knew. That is all I knew going into it. And from there, I came up with some motifs and stuff I loved. I came up with the idea of this breaking glass motif that Saffron would use. I came up with the idea of light being used in all these metaphorical ways. And I think that having those pieces and putting those together is kind of how the writing process worked for me. As a songwriter, I love taking musical, lyrical like motifs and ideas and combining them and recombining them and re-implementing them in different ways. And I think that writing the book, especially a second book, felt a lot like taking those themes and ideas and just like recapitulating them in fun ways.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I can absolutely see that. And especially as we see Saffron's character development continue. And can I just say, like, I know this has nothing to do with the question, but I love the magic system of the light tablet. Like, it
Oh my God.
was so fun, especially with all of the connections with ghosts and everything, which I won't get into that too much, but just like planes of existence and how we experience them. It was so fun to see all of that, and I'm trying so hard not to spoil things. But
It's hard to be really unspecific about it. So I think you know what? I think we are going to go ahead and say for this one we can spoil book one. We can spoil the contents of book one. Okay, so if
now
you
I
haven't
have
read
to
book
remember what was
one,
in book one
that's
versus
okay.
book two.
No, the biggest thing for book one, if you have not read it, get off right now and go read book one. It's
Yes,
free
go
on
it.
Amazon this week. Okay, 3, 2, 1. So the big thing about book one is obviously that Saffron, our main character, has actually been a ghost throughout
The
the
whole
entire course of the
time.
story, which
The
has been
whole
so much fun
time.
to watch readers discover as they go through this. And so we get to see how does being a ghost work when it's different than the image we have of people in white sheets and stuff, whatever we have in our world. And then seeing how this thing, the light tablet, interacts with the idea of death and life and kind of what's in between and what that actually means. It's so much fun to just like explore that
Yes.
magical system and
And
see it there.
I love that the tablets give possibilities to this world where there's a lot of things that I feel like Saffron has told over and over again, like she can't do. Like there's a lot of no's in her life that she generally tries to challenge, just depending on like the authority figures that are around her at the time. Like I feel like she's
Mm-hmm.
always feeling like she's having to answer to some sort of authority in one way or another. And I love how the magic kind of gives her a but what if? Like, what if I can make this happen? And I think that that's something with her relationship with the sister who may or may not exist. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's another kind of what if. Like, okay, the world has been defined for me, but I have my own rules and I'm
Yeah.
going to follow those. And I love how the magic system allows for that and allows her to push those boundaries. Like, okay, yeah, I'm dead, like I'm a ghost, but what if, what if
Mm-hmm.
I have more agency than people would expect? And
Yeah.
I love how that was played out in both of the books.
And that was so much fun in book two because now, like, okay, I'm a ghost. What does that mean? What can I do? And like throughout the book, she's constantly exploring like what ability she has. Like Marrow and Soul is very like low fantasy for 3/4 of the book, and then all of a sudden you're like, pow, ghost, and you're like, oh wait, this is like a big deal.
Yeah,
Threads of Light from the very beginning is like there's magic, there's ghosts, there's thralls who are people who are not ghosts but they are dead and being manipulated.
I'm here
It's
for
this
the
whole
zombies.
it's
Always
just
here for the
it's
zombies.
this whole thing. It's like man, and it was just like so fun to explore that and expand all of that as Saffron's like, okay, what options do I have? I think about that scene in The Incredibles when Dash is like running, 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 closes his eyes, and he looks, he's running on water, and he's like, and he starts laughing.
Yes,
It's just like the best moment of like, I can do this thing. Let's use it, and that's what Saffron gets to do over and over again in this book, which is so much fun.
absolutely yes, absolutely
Yes.
yes.
So we have a question from Heather. Hi, Heather, in the audience. This might be a spoiler, but are there 4 books because there are 4 tablets and we meet a new one each book? Um, Mostly yes. There are 4 books, which I'm really excited about. Not a trilogy. There are 4 books. Book 3 is with my editor. Book 4 is fully outlined. I'm super excited about these. Um, each one is going to have a tablet kind of as the focus, but
Mhm.
it's not going to be like the same arc each time. It's not like a Mission Impossible where it's like Tom Cruise has to go get the thing to save the world. And that's it. The
Saffron played
way
by
these
Tom
things,
Cruise.
yeah.
That would be iconic.
Glad I
It's
was saying
just
how.
Tom Cruise in a wig.
I'd watch that movie. I'd watch that. Well,
Mhm.
obviously I would because if Tom Cruise were in it, I probably got paid quite a lot of money for the rights. So I would definitely
100%.
watch that movie. But yeah, so you're going to see these tablets interact in different ways. In Marrow and Soul, the big thing and the prompt is like she has to go steal the ghost tablet to resurrect her parents. And Threads of Light, the fate of this, the tablet that's the center of this book, and this is in like the blurb for the book, is that this tablet gets stolen by somebody else. And so now she's this like reverse heister now that she's like chosen her side, and she's got to take steps to do something very different with the tablets. And books 3 and 4 with these other 2 tablets we've kind of sort of seen and heard mentioned, we'll see how they're interacted with, and I can tell you very different vibes and very exciting vibes. It's going to be so different, and I'm so I just want to share book 3 with you already because there's like literally like I could spend 15 minutes on just here's a list of spoilers. Just let me list all these things and just
Absolutely, yes.
but that's not going to happen here. So, yes, Heather, 4 tablets, 4 books, which is kind of the reason I chose to do 4 books, and I could not be happier with the way that this arc is going through.
I love that. I'm so excited for the other 2 books. I mean, obviously, I'm excited to reread Threads of Light and do all my annotations and everything, but just the way that this world is developing is so interesting because you're right, book 1 was very much slow fantasy. And it's funny because it's kind of what I'm doing with Aphmam and like the Mage and Melody universe where we're introducing the characters and it's slower fantasy. And then like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of magic. And then it just like amps up from there. And I just like that escalation makes me so happy whenever I read it. And so that was why I wanted to write it. And so it makes me happy that there's that element too, where we almost had like this kind of magic school kind of Harry Potter vibes there for a minute in Marrow and Soul, where we're like, oh, we're with our classmates and everything's fun and fine. And then it wasn't fun and fine.
Yeah.
And then in Threads of Light, there's, like you said, these larger stakes, and she's fitting into this new situation and very much feeling adrift. Pun intended, I guess. And so I'm really interested to see. I don't know if she's going to find her footing, honestly. I mean, she probably won't until like the very end because she's the main character. But I'm very interested to see where the other 2 tablets take us.
Oh man, it's gonna be a trip. It's gonna be so wonderful. So let's see. We have and Heather also said, please envision me rubbing my hands gleefully about this.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, just wait. We'll see how happy everybody is after they read book 3. So anyway,
no, don't say that.
I'm gonna put this next question on the screen, and then you'll read it for us, and then I'm gonna answer this for my books. And if you want, you can chime in kind of with thoughts about how it's to see your book as well. So go ahead and read the next question for us.
Perfect. Ooh, this is a great question. What was easier with this book, so Threads of Light, as compared with Marrow and Soul, and what was more difficult?
So I had to take some notes on this because I was like, man, this is a thing. So the biggest thing was I had a process in place. Before Marrow and Soul, I'd written one other like full manuscript. It's like a teenage superhero story, which is super fun. Love to listen with someday. That's in the future. That's in the archives. This is like my second full manuscript I wrote, and I'm still very much figuring out my process for how I wanted to write. So when I get to Threads of Light, I'm like, okay, I have like a process in mind, and I can twist it to fit what this story needs. I didn't come into this thinking I know what's going to happen. I came into this thinking I have a process, and we're going to figure out what's going to happen. And that was kind of the big thing with Threads of Light. Is like, I don't know where we're going to end up. I don't know where we're going to go. I don't know what the big twists are going to be. I have to discover that as I'm creating this story. And so by the time I finished my outline, I had that. But that was easier to come up with and took a lot less time because I had that process. I had some methods. I used like the Save the Cat outline method to help me kind of get the structure down, which was fun. I used chiastic structure tools, which is kind of like the circular structure of like kind of pieces reflecting each other across like the parallel of like first plot point, third plot point, that kind of thing. And then this was fun. I used Captain America, the Winter Soldier as like my plot beat guide for what I wanted to happen in the story. And the reason I did that was because one, it's a sequel to like Captain America, the First Avenger, and 2, it's Captain America breaking out of like his normal world to have to deal with the fact that like his allegiances and his people around him, they're more complicated than he wants them to be. It's not this for him. It's not this black and white go America kind of thing. It's like, wait, the people I'm with and the side that I'm on does not have its hands clean, and there might need to be more that happens than just like beat the bad guys and save the good guys. It's not that simple because who the good guys and bad guys are can shift and change as we learn and grow. And that was a big part of Saffron's journey. Is she starts this story like, I'm a protector. I work for the Empire, for the good guys. And by the end of the story, she's like, this is more complicated than I thought it was going to be. And she's going to have to reckon with that in pretty severe ways. No spoilers for book 2, but very severe ways.
Yeah.
And that was really fun that made this really fun to explore, made it easier. What was harder was definitely following up on the twist of book 1, because the twist of the main character was dead the whole time is a really hard twist to beat. There's a reason like Sixth Sense doesn't have a sequel, because that's not like once you have, like, how do you move on from that? So I had to think about what does this character need now that she's gone through this process to discover like this deeper truth about herself. And it's like the answer is you have to spread out. she's gone really deep inside to realize like, this is the truth about who I am. And now she's like, I have to realize now that I have a better idea of who I am, I have to figure out this world around me and what my place in it is. And that was where a lot of these twists came from. And so I focused a lot on like the family stuff with the sister that might exist and with her brother and with all of those pieces. But that was hard. It took a long time to do that and to make her growth and the growths of all of her friends and these other characters really believable. And the other thing that was really fun and annoying was I kept forgetting that Nightlight existed when I was writing scenes.
That's such a mood.
Oh my gosh,
I do that with Phyllis. I do that with Phyllis all the time.
he's just so sneaky, and I'm like, oh yeah, literally I have, and this happened in book 3 too. As I was writing, I have one note at the top of a chapter that's just like put Nightlight in the scene, and had that happen over and over again in book 2. I was like, okay, I got to make sure I go back. Like he's with Saffron, he's this little electric puppy lizard doing stuff. I got to make sure he's present in the scene. It's so easy to just forget to include him. So the answer is not just to put little things about Nightlight purred at the end of a chapter. It's like, okay, let's change this to make him important to the plot here. He's not just also here. He's the reason this is functioning the way it is. Absolutely. And the result of that was some really delicious stuff that's going to happen in books 3 and 4 as we figure out how important he is, which is just
I'm very excited. I knew he was going to be more important. I mean, he's very important in book 1, but yes, I mean, how can he not be important? He's just the cutest little electric puppy lizard in the universe. So
he really is. And seeing like these characters I didn't have a big plan for him after book 1. I was like, he's cool. He was not even that important in the first book, my first draft, and then after my alpha reader and after my editor, I was like, oh, he's like, people like him. I got to make sure he's in this more, and I'm so glad I did. And
then, anyways, I won't say anything, but I'm a little angry with how important you made him, actually. It's okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So did you have any thoughts about that? About this process for your own books, for your own stories as you've been writing?
Well, if I'm thinking about my last published book, or if I'm thinking of Afmam compared to Mage and Melody Book 2, I will say Afmam has been the easiest of any book I've ever written in my life, and I have drafted many manuscripts in between college and high school, and then after college, I've written a lot of books that really haven't gone anywhere just to figure out the drafting process. I drafted the rough draft of Afmam in 12 days. Like, I think it was 2 summers ago, maybe it was 3 summers ago.
Goodness.
I literally don't know where it came from. And like you were talking about the ending and the twist and Saffron realizing that she has the sister as being like this, whoa, now I know where to go with book 2, or I have to flesh this out. And I have no idea, like this just happened. She just showed up and said that this is what's happening now. That's how I feel about the twist at the very end of Afmam, because I was on a writing live. I think I was by myself. It was like 11 o'clock at night and I was just finishing. And I remember like I was muted, but I was like making all of these expressions and everybody was like, what is happening? And it was because that character that pops up at the end of Afmam showed up and was like, hey, I'm here now. And so I definitely think that there were a lot of pieces that now I'm having to bring into Mage and Melody Book 2 that have made it painful to write. Books 2 and 3 have been very hard so far, and book 4 has failed every time I've tried it. So
it's tough trying to continue a story after you wrap up one thing. It's like you got to fulfill expectations and also expand on them and grow everything. Sequels got to be bigger in some form and some meaning of the word, and that's a task. It is not easy, and that's why a lot of authors can kind of flop out on their second book because they don't capture the same magic, and that's such a tough thing. It's so hard to do.
Yes, absolutely. And I want the opposite problem. I want the Words of Radiance problem, where everybody likes book 2 better than the rest of the series.
I mean, that's fair. For those who've read Stormlight Archive, that Way of Kings book 1 is just like, I'm sad and I'm the main character, and book 2 is like, wait, there's like some good stuff in the world too. Let's go explore that. And it's a journey.
It's a journey before destination. But I would say Afmam by far has been the easiest book to write. My struggles with Iowa Bags. It would have been a great story, was rewritten 7 times, I think, by the end of it. And I really do think that, like you were talking about your writing process, I struggle to have a consistent process. I feel like it is really dependent on the book and really dependent on what's going on in my life, whether or not I can outline or whether or not I can, just explore and discovery write, or, kind of how that's going to be. So I really think it depends. But like you said, with a series, figuring out how to connect all these things, I'm feeling the need to have a system. So yeah, definitely something that bringing all of those pieces together has been a lot more difficult than I'd anticipated, but so rewarding whenever it happens. It does take some time. So that's incentive for you to go and read Marrow and Soul and Threads of Light, because they're good and they took a lot of work. So
it really is so satisfying to get those books out. So both of us now have published 2 books, with more books well on their way. Which is really fun, and it is a journey. But like, there's a reason most people who want to write a book never finish writing a book, let alone publish it, because it's exhausting and it's really difficult. But if your goal is just, I want to be able to say I created this story and put it out in the world, like, it's worth the pursuit to do it. We can tell you, our whole ridiculous community on Bookstagram can tell you it is still worth it. Absolutely, it is. Even if one person reads it and it impacts them, it is absolutely worth it. And I know both of us have had many more than one person impacted by our stories. And which is my, like, I looked at Threads of Light and there are multiple reviews on Goodreads, and I'm just like, people read this book and they like said good words about it. What's happening here? Yay! Yeah, because you're just so focused on the story so often that it's like you forget sometimes that, oh, people are going to actually read it. And it's amazing, guys. It's amazing whenever we have readers who take the time to tell us how much they appreciate it. So if you're an ARC reader for Threads of Light, or if you're reading it, binging it tonight, and you're like, oh my goodness, I hate you, Addison, for not having finished book 3, then you should tell him that. Probably that would be great. You should. And I'll tell you, the people who are talking about it are more likely to be the people that I choose for alpha and beta readers for these things. So not the bribery. If I know you're into it, it means I know you're going to go through and read the book, which is great, because I can't wait to make people feel more emotions with book 3. Oh man, here we go. So our next question, and you can answer this from your recollection based on your experience with Threads of Light. And I'll read this question out for us. Okay, who is your favorite character in Threads of Light and your least favorite character? Oh gosh. Yeah. So for me, like, this varies a lot for me. Since Kurt and Nightlight will always just be like beloved. They're like platinum tier, like permanently there for me. So like they almost don't even count, because like they're obviously the people I just love so much, because I just got to explore their characters, and as we get more with them, it's just man. See, I'm in book 3 mode, so I'm just like always thinking about how book 3 is going to happen. But for me right now, my favorite character is Seely. Because Seely, we get to meet her, and she's this kind of Hermione-ish character in book 1, who's her own rule follower, very smart, very intellectual, kind of in that way. And in book 2, she has to take those skills on the road, so to speak. And she is, in the part of her that is like me, is that she has to let her intellectual like beliefs and opinions and worldviews kind of come face to face with like the gritty reality of the world. And it's not so much a loss of innocence as like a reckoning of like, okay, this is how the world is, and this is where there are people who disagree with me and see different things. And it's like, I have to go through that, and I have to experience that, and I have to keep living. And I love the way that she does that in the story, and the way that she makes choices, and in the end makes a big choice. It's going to be very important for how she actually like sees the world, and the sides she chooses, and the people she chooses, and the things that she chooses to believe in. And it's really I love it. It's so much fun to see, and it resonates with me right now in this moment. But and I could talk about a lot of them. That's my favorite. My least favorite is Prince Bastian, because he sucks. He is just the worst. Now in Marrow and Soul, we get like we could see him twice. We steal his snacks, and like that's it. Yeah, and then like he comes back in the like last scene of Marrow and Soul, and we see him again. He's still obnoxious, and then we see him in Threads of Light, and he's still obnoxious. And it was so delightfully fun to write a character like him, who's not just a caricature of like the stuffy monarch, but is definitely just really annoying, and is like everything Saffron is not, and just creates so much on his nerves as this authority figure who has a lot of like real power over her.
Hmm.
But he really is just like awful in that way, and it's and to see how that character grows and develops in book 3 is gonna be fun as well. But like he's just the worst. He's just like, look, the ghost is here. Great, let's talk. And she's like, I do have a name, and he's like, he just doesn't care. He's
He's
just
like,
like,
and
yeah.
I'm
Oh
the
my god.
king.
Yeah, that's his deal. It's really, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's kind of my impression. So what about you, based on your experience with Marrow and Soul and Threads of Light? Who's your favorite right now, would you say?
Um, can the tablets be characters?
I mean, yes, they can.
Okay.
They
Then
definitely can.
I think it's a tie between the tablets and Poof Pants. Like,
Oh my gosh.
I think those are my two favorites. Like, obviously Saffron. Like, obviously I love her. But the tablets are just fun. They're just interesting to me, and I really want to know more about how they work. And so I think that they're just, from like an interest standpoint, maybe some of my favorite characters. And then Poof Pants
Yeah.
is so pure, and I love a rough character with a soft like side hobby. Like that just it literally every time. Like I don't even care. Like one of the things I'm most excited about, the next book that I'm excited about reading is Garden the Garden by Z.S.
Oh
Diamante.
yeah.
And it's like it's cozy fantasy, but it's this gruff like veteran guy. Like that's Poof Pants, and he's just he could like attack. He could probably save Saffron in a very difficult situation, but he could also make a great breakfast like after. Like he's just a very multi-purpose character, and he brings me a lot of joy.
He was so much fun. I will say that for those who have not followed my newsletter, I believe it's set up right now where you can follow my newsletter. I'll send you a free short story that features this character, Parnassus, aka Poof Pants. And I'll need to check this. I don't know if it's set up yet. I'll check this. But for the Kickstarter, I updated it with a couple of new chapters that take place like almost 2 decades later, closer to the beginning of Marrow and Soul. And I was so excited to write those chapters. If you're a Kickstarter backer, I sent that out to you. But if you didn't get it, or you can't find the link, or it expired, or whatever, send me a message. I'll happily send whoever you are this short story, because it is just so delightful. And it's about baking pastries and traveling the desert and hunting ghosts. And there's cinnamon rolls. There's a lot of literal cinnamon rolls. There's just so much
There's
stuff.
also Parnassus, the cinnamon roll. Yes. No. Okay. So I read it probably like a year ago. I didn't know it had been updated. So yeah, I will need that link again. Because I don't think I've read it with the extra chapters. So that would be excellent. Yeah. No, I love that short story. I was thinking that. I was like, I don't know if that's actually still a thing that you're sharing, so I wasn't going to mention it, but yes, since it is, y'all should go read it, because
it's a delight. I'm going to put that I'm going to make sure my newsletter's updated with all of that. It's just delightful. And if you're like, I can't find it, please just message me. I would literally love to give you like free stuff. Just like ask for it.
Yes, it's amazing. And then my least favorite characters would be the Whitecaps, like literally all of them, because we hate a stormtrooper. We hate them so much. I mean, not all of them. Sorry, everybody who likes Clone Wars. I don't know. But like just the mindless, like, yeah, we're gonna go and like terrorize children because this other guy told us to. Like, we're just gonna do that. We're okay. No, like that makes me angry. So
yeah. They kind of stink. They really do.
Yeah.
And they're one of those things that when I wrote Marrow and Soul kind of came together. It's like I didn't know exactly what their role was. But then they ended up like in this big first sequence, there's this big chase scene. They were really antagonistic. And I was like, okay, so I have these characters who we're just going to kind of hate. And then like everything else, we're going to have to explore what does that relationship look like with them as time goes on, which is fun because nothing is really black and white when it comes to people and allegiances and like powers in the world. It's a lot more messy than that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like they absolutely suck whenever you have to deal with them.
There is no justification for what they're doing, but I am excited to see the reasoning. And I do like in Threads of Light where Saffron has to kind of come to terms with being on the side that she chooses. And especially after everything that she and Kurt have experienced. And then, oh man, I can't even talk about it without spoiling, but she expects change, and it is not it doesn't happen. And that moment, I was like, this is so good, because you're like, okay, well, I picked this side, so then, they should listen to me because I'm cool, like I'm a ghost, right? Like
Mhm.
you should listen to me probably. And then, like, things don't change. And it's like, that's so often the experience of
Mhm.
like young adults and new adults, where there's all these ideals and idealistic beliefs and like, oh, we could fix the world this way or this way. And then you get into the sphere of, influence, and then nothing changes. And it's just, yeah. And
Yeah.
I know things will probably change on a more drastic level. But I did like that moment where it was like, oh, okay, so we're gonna play it that way. That's fine.
Man, that actually ties into this next question pretty well. So can you read this off for us?
How did this book change you? How did this book change you, Addison?
So I'm going to answer this, and then you're welcome to chime in, either talking about your experience with my books or talking about your experience with kind of your own writing as you've
Mm,
experienced it, whichever you feel like is more appropriate for what comes to mind for you.
yeah.
For me, Marilyn's Soul changed me because I wrote a book. Threads of Light changed me because now that I've written a book, I have to reckon with what does a creative process mean for me, like, as a person, as
Mm,
like a human being who exists, who has opinions and ideas and relationships and faiths and all these things that I are part of the person that I am. And so I think this book for me reflected a lot of my faith journey, especially over the last like 6 years in particular. Like as a believer in Christ, it's like, which is not like something that's like hugely focused on in my books, but there are underlying tensions and currents and things that apply to
absolutely.
this. But for me, it's like I'm learning as an adult who is 30 freaking years old to decouple myself from like the assumptions I made growing up,
Mhm.
which is not as simple as saying all that stuff I believed growing up in church, for example. Just use that example, or growing up in the South, or growing up in conservative, whatever. It's not about this complete reversal where it's like, oh, look at all that bad stuff. I'm on this side now. We're good. It's a really messy and complicated. And I
Yeah.
think that writing Saffron was made for me to explore, like, what does that complication look like? And I think one of my favorite
Mhm.
things is to use fantasy as a lens to explore this journey in very real ways. And I think that's how, honestly, I think that is the best way to write characters that people empathize with, that they connect with, because
Yeah.
we don't have to deal with whitecaps or tablets or wyverns or basilisks or any of these things that are in this book.
Unfortunately.
Oh man, but like we do have to deal with like life and a lot of these internal struggles. And fantasy has always been really good as a genre at externalizing the human condition and
Mm.
putting these beasts on the page for us to reckon with as part of our own journeys. And the ebbs and flows of fantasy and dark fantasy and traditional fantasy and the way that we see like good and bad and evil and all these pieces has been really complicated, just like life is really complicated. And so what I've learned, just like Saffron is learning in these stories, is like you grow up thinking certain things and then you mature and you change and you shift. Some things stay, some things go, and that is how the journey goes. And Threads of Light is not her ending. I have figured it all out. Just like me finishing Threads of Light is not like I figured out all my stuff. I'm set for the next 60 years or whatever.
Right.
It's all this process. And so I think for me, it's like coming to terms with that part of myself that's like I thought I have this all figured out by now, and realizing
Mm.
I don't, and that is okay because you're not alone.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. I mean, just to echo everything that you said, fantasy giving us space to work through things, as it gives us distance from the way that those things interact with our daily life. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a good realistic fiction problem novel, especially a YA one. I will read those all day long, but they are heavy. Like, it's heavy
Mhm.
whenever they're dealing with real things.
Yeah,
And it's hard to work through those whenever they feel so real. But if you add the magical elements, or if you add the fun things as kind of a distraction, but also as an avenue to express those emotional turmoils and those emotional growth points and all of those things that you're experiencing as well, it can be such a powerful tool. And I mean, that's why I love writing fantasy, and that's why I love reading it too, because I really do think that the way that Mirror and Soul and Threads of Light changed me whenever I read it was I mean, it just pushed me to be more empathetic towards people like Saffron, and obviously towards, I mean, several different characters. I think of Kurt, I think of Celie, I think of all of these characters that you just portrayed in such a human light. And the characters like Saffron who are so confident and almost like, you know, remind me of Melody and her like, oh, I'm going to just, you know, go do things because I'm invincible, which I guess for Saffron is almost true. But, you know, having those characters, you know, maybe at one point I would be like, oh, this is annoying, you know, if I met somebody like that. But now having Saffron's story and having all of the things that she has done in order to get to this level of confidence, like I really do think that was something that your books left with me for a while, was just remembering that everybody is coming to the table with all of the things, all of the baggage and all of the burdens and things, fears waiting at home and uncertain things going on. The way that they're interacting with the world around them might be unsteady. And especially as a teacher, like remembering that is so important for me whenever I walk into the classroom, that I'm walking into a classroom full of Saffrons and Celies and all of the people and Melody and Tally, you know, like there's all of these people who are convinced that, well, in sixth grade, that the world revolves around them to an extent. And so, you know, navigating that as a positive influence takes empathy. And I really think that that's just something magical that fantasy can give to us, is empathy for others that are not like us. Because I would not react in the same way that Saffron did to her situation because I don't have her personality. But seeing the way that she takes on the world shows me how I should interact with people like her, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think that's the thing. It's like, and this is authors a lot of times will find this, especially writing fantasy or stuff. It's not just real world, but even real world stuff too. These books teach us, the writers. It's not about us inflicting our worldviews upon the unsuspecting population. It's about us learning and growing alongside these characters, because they are all embodiments of us. I am not Saffron. I am not Celie. My personalities do not line up with any character I've created, but there are pieces in there of all of this, and there are pieces and ways for me to take a look at this piece outside of myself and say, hey, what does this look like? What does this feel like? How do I experience this? Which is just magic of fantasy, man. It's
absolutely
there. Yeah. So let's get the next question.
Ooh, what is your dream story to write? Is it not Merowyn's Soul and Threads of Light?
No. Here's the thing. I love it. It's so much fun. And it's the first time I've found like a story and a storyline. I'm all in on this. So all of that is true, and I love it. We actually kind of touched on this just now. But honestly, I just want to write anything that uses fantasy as a way to explore my own journey and the journeys of people around me. And so I have tons of like unfinished stories. I also have tons of like outlines and pieces of outlines and stuff. Like I have some manuscripts that got to like 40,000 words and stopped. I have others where I have like full fleshed out outlines just waiting for me to start drafting. I've got these two stories I love. One's focused on this like musical magical system, like it's an epic fantasy, and it's like as like trained like classical and pop musician, I'm like, let's get into the weeds in a really fun way, which I'm really excited about. But also another one that's about like memory and magic, and basically the idea of memory is being used as a form of magic in terms of like manifesting stuff. And it's like really fun ways to explore like how these pieces of music and these pieces of memory affect our journeys as people and the way we experience these things and how they connect to personal development. Like at this point, whenever I start writing a story, it's all about what are these characters doing? What do they have to experience, and how are they going to change? And that's how I have to start every story I start now. And using these lenses of magic, especially, and other forces are just so fun. And that's the way I really experience these stories, which is why I don't read a lot of realistic stuff now. Like I read nonfiction. I like reading like historical accounts of, you know, like shipwrecks and whatever. But also it's like, if it's like, I want to read about like these magical things and use that as a lens to explore the world. And I think that's my dream, is just to write any story like that. That's for me.
I feel like reading nonfiction books about shipwrecks means that you've officially passed into like dad sphere. You're like, I am a father now. I'm reading nonfiction books about shipwrecks.
I'm 30. I grew a beard. I'm wearing a dad joke kind of shirt. I make stuff up. I have like 7 like straight up dad joke shirts that I
Yes,
raise. Some of them are writing, most of them are not.
you've
I'm
embraced it.
fully embracing this era, and it's just this is
Yes,
where I am because if people don't think this is being a dad, it's like heck yeah, I am.
absolutely you
True.
are. Yes, I love the books about shipwrecks. That just yeah, that tracks.
Oh yeah.
Um, I love that, and I completely agree. Like stories that help you process things, and then stories that help other people process things through fantasy or through these elements. I am right on board with that. I mean, anybody who knows my two contemporary fantasy romances are focused on like mental health and magic. So it's exploring how mental health is kind of shown through this magic system that's developed and then further developed in Tally and Melody's story.
Yeah.
But a dream story that I would like to write also, I would love to say that the music in magic is so exciting to me because my sister is going to school for music education right now and I'm trying to get
Ooh.
her more into reading. And so I feel like she would be just freaking out over something that like uses music theory in a really nerdy way to like talk about magic systems. She would love that.
Mhm.
So you'll at least have one audience member.
Awesome. I'm so
Um, that
excited.
sounds awesome. But
Very cool.
I just for the dream story that I would like to do next after Mage and Melody lets me go. I have a science fantasy. It's on another planet and there's a lot of science elements, but I don't want to explain them. And so I'm calling it science fantasy because I don't want it to be like really techie
There
sci-fi,
you
not
go.
so much. But it's a story about grief and about a boy overcoming losing a father figure very suddenly and in a way that he is not comfortable with. And just dealing with the grief of like, okay, what do I do next? And this isn't like he's stuck in a society that expects him to move on very quickly. And that's not really addressing kind of how grief works. And I just am really excited to explore that because grief is so weird. And I feel like it needs a magic system to talk about it in a way that I think people will hopefully find relatable.
Yeah.
Um, and just bringing that into a whole world experience because I've been writing contemporary fantasy for so long that I feel like an epic science fantasy would be just a really cool way to explore kind of grief and what that looks like. But anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. That sounds really fun. I love those ideas. I have a science it's funny, a science fantasy book. It's actually has music is magic and a completely different system than the other one I'm working on. That I would actually have it mostly plotted out, and I would love to write it sometime. I just have to actually take the time to be ready. I actually did the first chapter I wrote is actually it's called A Liaison, and it's
Ooh,
I actually wrote it and I put it in a couple of short story contests that it won. So
nice.
it was a lot of fun to do, a lot of fun to explore, and I'm really hoping that given time I can finish actually writing this story. I just have to find the time, and I have uh, a rather extensive workload of stories I need to complete at the moment, which is
Yep.
actually a great segue to our next question. So can you read that out for us?
Ooh, what are you writing next?
Yes. So,
And why is it book 3 so that I can read it fast?
so book 3, I'm so excited for, well, book 3 of this series is going. I will tell you, for those who have stuck around for the live stream up to this point, I'll give you a little sneak peek of my tentative title so far, as it stands. The tentative title is Stories That Bleed, and it's going to be really uh, ratcheting up these fantastical elements
Can
and
we get the
ratcheting
stories
up
of
the tension.
Band-Aid?
No spoilers. But it's gonna be exploring like a lot more of these elements, and especially even the element of storytelling within the story that I'm so excited for. And it's gonna be related to the Blood Tablet, which is the next tablet on the list that I'm so excited for.
The yelly
That's
guys.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be yes, and I am. I can't just keep saying it's gonna be great. I need to stop just talking about it because that's all I'm just gonna keep saying over and over again. But I'm very excited to share that. But until then, that's my editor until the end of the month.
Okay.
Until then, I'm book 4 is fully outlined. I did basically a zero draft in bullet points. That's like 17,000 words. So I have this like outline that I'm literally just going to use that to actually write the actual story. I'm going to start drafting that if all goes well in April. That's the plan.
Okay.
Until then, by the end of the month, I'm hoping to finish the book I'm currently drafting, which is a cozy fantasy that is so much fun. It's about a trapper, an animal trapper, who is caught and is sentenced to working for a year on a preserve filled with mystical creatures. And it's this whole, I'm taking like the Legends and Lattes vibe, I'm taking like the House Cerulean Sea vibe, where you have this person that's kind of put in this new environment, and they have to figure out how to function there.
Yes.
And I'm taking this fish out of water idea and applying it to a protagonist who, in theory, we shouldn't like, and saying, okay, how can we make this whole journey of his feel cozy and feel relatable and really feel interesting? It's going to be a lot less about the plot twist. There are going to be plot twists and stuff, but it's going to be less about like crazy plot twists and action scenes and whatever, and more about just like relationships with people and animals and their circumstances. And I've made up so many fun mystical creatures for the story, and I've subverted some other ones that already exist, which is a lot of fun. So I'm a little over halfway through drafting that story right now, and I'm hoping to finish that by the end of the month, which is very exciting.
That is so exciting. My follow-up question is, can you justify a Lucerin in the animal preserve?
I may or may not already have a Lucerin in the story.
I love that.
Yes. So do not worry. I'm accounting for the love that I have found for Nightlight over these years.
Theory, is Nightlight Hoyd?
I actually thought about that. It's like, is he just this creature who looks like hops around my literary universes, just kind of popping up in every story? But no, there will be Lucerins in this story, which is very fun. But it's going to be a little different. But they're going to be present, and it's going to be a nice little Easter egg for those who have read Marrow and Soul and the other books. So that's what I got. Tell us about what you're writing next.
So I'm writing book 2 of All for Mage and Melody, and I'm writing it. I think this is the 3rd draft. So I've written it fully twice, and I'm rewriting it for the 3rd time. And I love this book. And I just realized as I was saying that I've actually already finished that one, and I'm working on draft 3 of book 3. So never mind. Listen.
You write so fast. You finished the whole draft by the time you finished talking.
Guys, I've been going so intensely for so long. It's okay. I need to learn how to rest. But honestly, the reason why is because I was so excited. I might have sped through book 2 a little bit because I was so excited, because book 3 has a point of view character that I'm obsessed with. And can I spoil book 3 on here right now? I mean, it's not like a huge spoiler.
I think you can.
Okay.
I think you can. I think people, they might, either they'll forget by the time it comes out, or they'll be so excited they have to read it.
Okay, so book 1 happens, and in book 1 we meet kind of this dynamic group of 4 kids, and so it's Tally and Melody and Sam and Liv. Mm-hmm. And then book 1 happens, and book 2 happens, and then in book 3 our point of view is Tally and Melody and Liv. So Liv is getting her point of view in book 3. And I'm really excited. I also have a Liv bonus scene that's going to be in the Kickstarter that was really trippy to write. Yeah, I won't say anything else, but I love her so much because she's such a fun, complex character to develop. And so I'm working on book 3 because I rushed through book 2 so that I could get to Liv's point of view. That's what I'm doing right now.
That is fantastic.
Well, currently I'm staring at Kickstarter graphics is what my writing process looks like right now. But when I'm not, it's book 3.
Tis the season, and I think as we're, if anybody else has any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments as we start to wrap up. But I think it's a good time to start kind of wrapping up this situation now. For those of you who are newsletter subscribers or Kickstarter backers, I'm so grateful that you took the time to support little indie creator like me and to come along on this journey. Creators like myself and Emma really appreciate that. And if you're interested in carrying on the love, right now I'm putting in the comments a link. And that link will take you to I think it kind of sort of worked. Give me a second to actually pull the proper link and put that in there. But this is a link to All from Mage and Melody, which is Emma's new project that is launching on Kickstarter tomorrow. It's about theater kids who might be the chosen ones. It is so exciting. Here, I think this one will actually work this time. So super excited for this project. So go to the comments right now, get that link. That's going to launch tomorrow at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. Is that correct?
Yes, and we will actually be back on live round 2 on Instagram tomorrow. So you'll get to see us all over again. And I feel like we should color coordinate again because we definitely both match the Threads of Light cover.
Yes.
Like I didn't even really plan that, but we totally did. So
Give me a color on there.
We'll be back. We got it. And now you know what the cover looks like, so we can match. I also love that it's glossy. Like I feel like this is such a middle school vibe. It brings me so much joy. But yes, we will be going live, and then I will be launching my Kickstarter while on live with Addison. So if you want to come and freak out about that, just show up on Instagram. We'll be there.
Yes. It's going to be fantastic.
Around 9 Central, 10 Eastern?
Yes. Yeah. 9 Central, 10 Eastern. Yes. Okay. Good. So are we still here? Are you okay? Good. We didn't freeze. Awesome. I thought we froze for a second. So we are going to go ahead and wrap this up now. So thankful for all of you for showing up here and being here. Emma, thank you for being here so much. I'll keep you on as we end the stream. But for everybody watching, have a wonderful night. And I will tell you one more thing before we go. If you have not read Marrow and Soul yet, and you're like, I heard that spoiler and I'm like mildly curious about it, this book is free right now on Amazon, on Kindle, like not just Kindle Unlimited. It's literally free. Go download the book. Just download the ebook and start reading tonight. It will keep you up. You will enjoy it. I'm daring you to enjoy it, basically. Absolutely. So it's gonna be quite a ride. So check out that book on Amazon if you haven't yet. If you haven't read Threads and Soul, if you haven't read Threads of Light yet, go check that out wherever you buy your books. And then tomorrow morning at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, join Emma and I at that link in the comments for the Kickstarter launch of All for Mage and Melody. Emma, thank you for being here. Everyone else, thank you so much for being here. We love you guys. We're so excited to share this crazy author journey with you. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you at another live stream in about 13 hours.
Oh my goodness. Yay!
Bye, everyone.